Here we are, Nanny and Moose together again with our little fireside chat. And we're going to talk about home from Scotland now, back to New Jersey. Now what? Well, I must say you're looking very dapper in your outfit.
Do you know, you probably remember this.
I thought it was your Jack Benny outfit. We did a little bit of house hunting. I became a little discouraged at first, but we wanted to be out in the country because we were inspired by the beauty of Scotland. We just didn't want to live in a house on a street. And we found this wonderful old saltbox colonial red. Seemed to be, by the way, a color that went on with us. And it was on a couple of acres of wooded land, and we fell in love. And that was it. Moved in the beginning of the summer. Had a great summer of all of a sudden in the fall, I believe the chicken pox hit our family once the kids got settled in school. And it was chicken pox for 3 weeks with one and then another. It went on for months.
You remember that we didn't have enough money to buy this house. We wanted it.
Right.
Because the proceeds that I got from selling the house in Montclair, when we went to Scotland, I gave it to a friend of the family who was on Wall Street, and he put it into one stock, Pennzoil, that went sky, like this, and then it went like that, and he never sold it. So when we get back, I had no money, and so I had to borrow money from my father.
So, in order to help us with our finances, I decided to go back to school and teach. There was a school in the area, about a 20-minute drive down a nice road, and the principal allowed me to bring Margie. She was the only one that wasn't in school, and I was teaching a first grade, so she got the benefit, before she was ready for school, of my teaching. She learned to read rather early. And we paid Dad back, and we still had some money left over, so I enjoyed it. By the way, another thing, Moose said to me when we were living in Scotland, remember I said we had a full-time housekeeper, Cammie? I remember he said to me, get used to this because someday we have to go back to the States. Well, guess what?
We brought a housekeeper with us.
We did. I couldn't get used to getting along without the housekeeper. So we had Kathleen, who was a second one.
She hated it.
Well, she was from Ireland, and she loved it in the beginning, but eventually found some relatives in Long Island who convinced her maybe she should go back to Ireland. But she did stay with us for the whole year, and at the end of the year, she did go back, but it was great. The winters were my favorite. We hadn't been used to too much snow, except way up when we went skiing in Scotland. And the snow came, and it was a beautiful area of New Jersey, sort of down almost the Pennsylvania borderline. And on the weekends, we had friends and neighbors with several children like ourselves. And when we would invite them over on a Sunday afternoon for hot chocolate and snacks and things, they would pull up in horse-drawn sleds with all their kids and hop out. I mean, it was what? Something like out of Currier and Ives. I loved it. It was beautiful, but
it was cold.
It was cold.
You remember what the fella I worked for took care of us, because in freezing cold February, he sent us down to Florida on some kind of a fake marketing trip, and we went to the track, and we went over to the Nassau.
We did. We bought some paintings.
I mean, we did so many things.
I bought a bikini. I could still, you remember that bikini? It was the cowboy one that had fringe on it.
Indians.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, when we came back, we had parked the car in Philadelphia. The locks on the car were frozen. We couldn't get into the car.
Back to reality again. Anyway,
we were happy we were gone.
It was, but June came, and Moosey came home one night with the news that the company wanted him to move. Guess where? Oh, the other wonderful thing about being there were our parents were so thrilled to have us home. They would come down on the weekends and stay with us, and it was wonderful. And I must say, I loved that house.
It's great.
So, in June, when my teaching stopped, Moosey went ahead and moi stayed back, which is the usual way you do it, I guess, with big companies. And I took care of the sale of the house and the packing up, company packed up. And by the end of June, we were off and left. And I remember one thing you don't remember. When we got in the car and sort of with tears in our eyes, waved goodbye to our little beautiful house, you gave me something. Do you remember what it was in the car?
Oh.
I know. It was a watch, a beautiful little gold watch that he had inscribed. And it was a little gift, he said, for doing a good job, for staying back and taking care of the
Sure
kids.
did.
Wasn't that neat?
Yep.
You know, the other thing I just remembered that I wanted to mention, oh, the dog. When we bought the house, it came with a beautiful big male, not fixed, black lab, whose name was Sawyer, and also a first aid kit, because he was a deer chaser, and he would come back and
No, he was a poodle chaser.
well, that too, but he also loved the deer, and he would get buckshot in his behind from people when he'd be out chasing animals, well, whatever he was chasing, and he'd come back after 2 weeks missing, whining, and we would have to fix him up, and that's when we discovered what the first aid kit was for. When we sold the house, the people that bought the house had to inherit the dog, and they did.
Do you remember another thing? If the dog came across a dead deer, he would eat it. Then he would come back and he'd lay down in the living room.
Oh, I know what you're
When
gonna
he
say.
passed gas, you had to leave the room.
Everybody would run.
5-week-old dead meat he was eating.
But this was our experience with animals for the first time. When we were in Scotland, Billy was always saying, please, can we have a dog? Can we have a dog? And what did you tell him?
When you're 21.
Yeah, and you know he started to tell people that when I'm 21, I can get it. My dad said I can get a dog. Anyway, so June, we were off, and guess where we were going? This time, we were off to the San Francisco Bay Area, but Moosey decided to give us all a little vacation. Where'd we go?
Disneyland.
Yeah.
And Raspberry Farm.
And the place where the whales would jump out. It was SeaWorld, that's what it was.
SeaWorld, yeah.
So we flew to Southern California first, stayed there for 4 or 5 days to get us used to the palm trees and total different living. And then we drove up, I believe, in a rented car. I think our cars were being shipped. That was it. We had, I believe, a station wagon that we had shipped out at the time. But we found a house in the Bay Area of San Francisco in a nice little, kind of a country town called Danville. And loved the house, except it was pink. So what did Nanny decide to do?
Paint it.
I did.
You put on a tool belt.
Yeah, with what?
With a watch.
A bikini. Because it was summer and I wanted to get a tan. And it was our first ranch house. We had always had older 2-story homes, 3 stories. It was a ranch house. It was our first house with a pool.
That was exciting for us.
It was. It was just fun. So I painted the house.
And I cooked. I had a kitchen.
An apron. Someone said that Mary Ellen felt more at home in a tool belt, and you felt more at home in the apron. And Moosey grew beautiful flowers and tomatoes. We had wonderful tomatoes, and he canned tomatoes all summer. So that's what we did. New schools for the kids, and we settled into California life. My parents were thrilled. They came out that year. We visited San Francisco quite often. what did we do in around January? When was it? January or February?
Chinese New Year.
Yes.
We went to the parade down in Chinatown.
Was that exciting?
Yeah, there's firecrackers going off all over.
The kids couldn't believe it. We had all the 4 kids with us, and the dragons in the street, the big long dragons. It was quite a sight.
Yeah.
We also loved riding the cable cars up and down all the hills in San Francisco, and it was quite a fun life. Along about February, George Washington birthday weekend, the kids had been riding horses, and they had taken lessons in Scotland. And they said, can we have a horse? We want a horse. So Moosey said, sure. Okay, we'll get a horse. So we opened the newspaper. This is how we did things sometimes. We looked in there, we saw an ad. Someone had a Palomino horse for sale, and it was in the next town over. So kids got all excited. Moosey said, come on, hop in the car. Let's go look at it.
Oh, when you go shopping, you just take your
your shopping bag.
Your shopping bag and your shooting brake.
Your shooting brake, yeah.
And we went down, and there was a fella, and he had it, and we loved it. And he said, okay, let me throw the hay here that I've left over in your car. And then we looked at it, and we said, where are we going to put that pony?
Do you know, it never occurred to us. And it was a beautiful Palomino horse with a white mane and a white tail, and her name was Blondie. Oh, the kids were in love. So we thought, we can't put the horse in the station wagon.
I said to the guy, saddle it up.
So he did. She came with the saddle.
3 miles away, we found a railroad track that ran between the 2 towns.
Started to get dark.
I walked the horse along the railroad track.
I had to drive the car to keep the headlights on Moose, who was riding this horse. It was about a mile or 2 to get home. And it took quite a while with the headlights on because it was dark by now. I don't know whatever possessed us to do this. We arrived home. Moosey could hardly get off the horse, but he did. And it was like, where do we put the horse? We didn't have horse property, but we did back up to a farmer's 2,000 acres. And so the kids went up and tied the horse on the other side of the fence and stayed there. And eventually we talked to the farmer. He said we could keep the horse there, thank God. That was that. However, the next morning, my sweet Moosey woke up and he said, I can hardly move. You must have been dying with the pain.
I had 2.
I said, pull down your pants.
Black and blue marks on my butt.
He did. And it was a couple days before you were okay again. But that was just one of our exciting things that happened. It was also the first time that the kids got involved in soccer. Soccer leagues were just beginning to be started here in the United States at the time. I think you got involved with the little, the Cub Scout thing with one of the boys. I did some volunteering in the schools. Yeah. We did go in and out of San Francisco. We had a really nice time. I loved it there. I loved the weather. Oh, is that where you bought your little first?
Carmen Gia.
Your first, this was another first for us. A first horse and?
I don't know.
A first horse and a first station,
Convertible.
Convertible.
Carmen Gia.
Right.
New Jersey guys, as a rule, didn't have a convertible.
It was hunter green. Was that it? Hunter green?
Yeah, with a tan top. It was gorgeous. It
had a little shelf in the back, and one of the first outings we took, another crazy thing, we put the 4 kids, who by this time were all in school, kindergarten up, on a shelf. It wasn't even a seat in the back. And we drove along the coast down to Carmel. Well, it was about a 2 or 3 hour drive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Loved it. We just were so enamored with that. We swam in the pool. We also did buy that first doggie, a black Glover puppy. And that puppy...
Not brilliant.
No, something was the matter with that poor puppy. He chewed most of my cashmere sweaters that I had bought in Scotland. Every night when Moosey came home in his nice suits, every night the puppy would be so excited to see him. He'd go up to him at the front door, and what do you do?
Peed on my shoes.
Peed on his shoes. And he also, that winter, jumped through the pool cover. We had a pool cover, a hole. He made a hole, jumped through the pool cover, and our dear Matthew, who was about 10 at the time, dove into this freezing pool. It was such a crazy thing to do. He could have drowned to get the puppy and pull the puppy out through the hole. Some crazy things. But that was what our life was beginning to be like, with 4 kids growing up, active kids. And of course, the girls absolutely did nothing except ride that horse all the time.
You know, we could have stayed there all our lives, but I was getting an eerie feeling that they were going to move me again because I was so good at what I did. And I really didn't want to become a screwdriver tool of the Singer Company. And I told my boss there, a good guy, and he said, all right, he said, put your paper out. And I found a place down here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Time to sell the house. We were gone by October, I believe, right before Halloween. And we drove down. I don't think we drove down in the car McGee. It must have been in a station wagon. And we had a fishbowl. We found a home for the doggie. That doggie was not for us. We had a fishbowl with fish that the kids decided they couldn't live without. And I believe we drove down along the ocean too. The horse was delivered a couple days later. We did not put the horse in the shooting break. But we found the most wonderful home in the world, the home that I've loved, which became our homestead for 25 years. And because Moosey had decided no more moving, that the kids had, it was after Billy said
Remember
something.
That store, I always took the kids to school on the first day. And we were taking Bill to 8th grade. And he had been to the same school the year before, in 7th grade. And he said, Dad, this is the only time I've ever repeated at a school. And I said to myself, I had an offer to go back to New Jersey. I said, nope. Not going to do that. Yeah. It's not fair to these kids to move them around 8 times or something.
And Thanksgiving, thank heavens they were all outgoing kids. They were extroverts and they were able to make new friends every year. But we realized, wow, this is not the right thing to do with our family. So we were on our way down to Southern California, where we had to find a house that had a place for the horse. And we thanked that horse for the rest of our lives for bringing us to horse country, because that property went up in value. It was an area that was zoned only for horses, a town in Southern California, sort of North Orange County. And that went up and up and up in values over the years, and was probably the main reason that we were able to retire when we sold that home and be somewhat comfortable, right? So thank you, Blondie. So a couple of days before Halloween in 1972, we moved into the love of my life, this red ranch, sprawling red ranch in a horse-zoned area of Southern California, with a red barn and white fences and beautiful birch trees and a big long horseshoe driveway. We eventually named it Red Barn Acre, but it became our home for the next 25 years. And we're going to try and break up all these years into chronological order, and we're going to try and get through this in this video.
Bite-sized pieces.
Bite-sized pieces, if that's possible. Moosey says, I don't do bite-sized, but... I am editing this video. I'm finding that it's quite long. I've never done a video this long. And I haven't even added all the pictures yet, which probably could add another 7 or 8 minutes. And I know people have done videos that are 45, 48 minutes, which is what this might wind up to be. But if it is too much for you, I'm thinking perhaps I should divide it into 2 parts. So I might do that. And if I do, I hope you'll enjoy it that way. Thanks for watching. We're going to close this now, and I hope you had enough fun stories. I know you've been enjoying it. We both want to thank you so much for enjoying this the way you have, and thank you for your thumbs up. And for those of you who haven't subscribed yet, we'd love it if you would. Love you all. God bless us all. Bye for now.